I believe the common denominator of the universe is not harmony, but chaos, hostility, and murder.
I got a burning mentality. Burning mentality is the only way that I can I've got a burning mentality. Burning mentality is the only way that I can see. Surviving has to survive.
If you would be so kind, would you mind introducing yourself for the podcast?
Sure thing. This is Shawn Knight from the band Childbite.
And how would you describe the music that Childbite makes?
Oh, I usually try and leave that to other people, because everybody's got their own idea of how to describe music, and it's kind of a fickle thing. But, it's a mix of all the kind of stuff I grew up on, and if I had to narrow it down, there's some of it is like the punk hardcore side of things, and you got the metal stuff, and then you have that kind of weird, I think maybe what people would call noise rock nowadays. When I was growing up, it was more just a big overarching term of alternative, which I admit is a out of date thing, but it's kind of a blend of all things, kind of like aggressive, heavy, and somewhat experimental rock.
So do you feel that you belong to one scene or another? Do you feel that you belong more to the metal side or the punk side or anything like that?
No, yeah, I don't feel like we belong to one side more than the other, and it's kind of a double-edged sword where we can fit in everywhere, but also some people see it as fitting in nowhere. But from our experience, at least tour-wise, going out and playing with an old hardcore band, it goes well. People are into it, feels like it fits. And then we go out and play with a more like an extreme metal type band, same thing. So it seems in general we can kind of fit in, especially in a live situation, because the energy and the live show, just to kind of like that kind of volume and energy seems to kind of translate and kind of cross across any genre borders.
So let's talk about the history of the band a little bit. When did you guys form, and what did you set out to accomplish?
Band formed late 2005. it was myself and two other buddies that are no longer in the band, haven't been in the band in years, and really, I was I was in a kind of an indie rock type of band before that, and it was that where I was not the main guy. I was just like kind of the playing rhythm guitar and sometimes some other stuff. And anyways, that band was slowing down, it seemed like, and I was not ready to be done with music. So I thought I guess I should start my own thing. And this is what it became. It was kind of just we didn't set out to sound necessarily just like anything. It was very much like an organic, like get these people in a room and see what comes out, and that stuff. Yeah, I mean back then it was pretty modest aspirations. Let's record an album, let's make a CD, and let's play some shows out of town. So it was starting out. It was pretty basic, simple goals.
Were you based in Detroit the whole time? Or sorry, Michigan?
Yes. Yep. It's always been kind of in Detroit or suburbs surrounding Detroit. Yeah, so we've always been around here.
Cool. Childbite has a new album out now called Blow Off The Omens. Tell me about the album. Tell me about writing the album.
This one, it was pretting interesting for us. We had a couple years back, we had our guitar player and our drummer both decided to leave the band after having been in it for several years, which is totally understandable. After doing something long enough, you start to think about, how do I want to, spend the rest of my time, my play out the rest of your years. And so they decided to move on to different things, not even other music stuff, just do something different with their lives. So then the band was left to be, it was basically me, the singer, and the other Shawn was the bass player. And we had to kind of rebuild it a little bit from that. We found a local guy that we knew a little bit, but we didn't know him super well. Guitar player, this guy named Jeremy Wan, and we knew of his band called Reverend, and he kind of popped in our heads as far as the probably the best case scenario guitar player, replacement. And he was totally into it, and he was just a natural fit. So he did a couple years touring with us before we even wrote any music with him. And all that time as well, we were playing with various drummers, and we kind of just got to a point where nobody was really sticking. Everybody had other things going on. They liked doing it with us, but nobody could commit to doing as much of Childbite as we wanted to do. So we kind of at that point just came to the decision of basically treating it almost like the Melvins treat their bass player slot, where we're like, we have the core guys that are the band, and then there's going to be this one revolving door, and that's okay. We came to accept that, and we have plenty of friends that are like great drummers that know a lot of the material that whenever a tour comes up, we're able to say yes to it because the three of us are like on the same wavelength and the same goals. And then after that, we can be like, all right, let's go down the list and see who wants to come out and play drums with us. So getting to the writing of this record, it was first time writing with Jeremy and also writing without a drummer. So we did some sessions with various friends coming in just like for a couple hours here and there. And that was helpful. But in the end, we found it was most helpful or the best route for us was just like the three of us to sit down, like bring our own ideas to the table, but sit down and start demoing them out, like on the computer, throwing in some like rough drum parts, and just kind of assembled the music that way. And on this record, but we knew at the end of the day we're gonna have to have one drummer that takes on those duties for this album, and we chose this excellent drummer friend of ours from Milwaukee, which is, for people that are unaware, the geography is a good like 5-6 or so hours from here. But through the magic of the internet, we were able to send him demos quickly. He could work on them at home and ping pong them back and forth until we got them right, and then finally get together in the same room and work out the kinks.
This album was recorded with Steve Albini in his studio, Electric Audio in Chicago. How did you decide to work with Albini?
He was just whenever we're get into that time where we're working on a new record, we start. We're fans of various engineers and studios, and we kind of look at each one of those as we like to bounce around a little bit. We've done some stuff repeated with different people, but for the most part, at least for albums, we've kind of treated each one like each album is going to have its own, experience that's unique to it from the other ones. So different engineers, different studios, and so it's always, whenever we're coming time to work on a record, we bring it down. Then we obviously have to figure out who we want to do this with, and he's just kind of always been on the list for obvious reasons. Any band should have him on their list, especially because he's still very much attainable. You can. That's the cool thing with him. So many people have asked me, like, how did you get to hook up with him? How did that happen? And it's like anybody can do it, and it's really a testament to how kind of down to earth and what kind of, he's sort of like looks at himself as like this kind of like engineer for the people, or like a blue collar tradesman that if you wanted to go record with him, you could book that and you could go there and do it. So it's pretty cool that he's a guy of his stature makes himself that available. And the fact that he's been around for a while, we're like, well, maybe we should, who knows how long he's going to be doing this for. So maybe we should, pull the trigger on this particular route now, as opposed to waiting another 5 or 10 years to do it.
Yeah, Albini is known for, he doesn't like to use the term producer. He, sometimes he just describes himself as an engineer, and he's known for making bands sound like the way they sound like, rather than, putting his own spin on their sound or trying to make them sound a certain way. What was your personal experience with working with Albini?
I mean, yeah, you kind of hit the nail on the head with that, because that's definitely his thing. He does not want to have any creative input. He wants you came to him and he's, like you said, he's gonna try and just make you sound the way you sound, but in the technically best way possible. Yeah, it was very much like that, and it's because he's working. He said he barely takes a day off. He records, and bands go in there. He works very fast. So, for instance, we recorded this album in 3 days. And that is probably relatively average for him. I bet he does a lot of these 2, 3, 4, 5 day kind of sessions. So if you think about that, and that he doesn't take much time off, he's working with, probably a couple hundred bands a year, and year after year. So I think that could be even, I don't know, almost like emotionally taxing if you're going to invest that much of yourself into it to try and be a quote unquote producer, be really creatively involved and emotionally involved. So I think that's the decision he's made, and it was cool for us. We're comfortable making those decisions ourselves, and we knew that about him going in there. I'd worked with him once before on an older band, and so I had the gist of how it was going to go. And yeah, for us, it worked out very well. It was, we went in super prepared, so I think he appreciated our efficiency, and yeah, it was really not really too many bumps along the road.
Would you say Albini or any of the bands that he's been in throughout the years are an influence on Child's Bite?
Not completely to me personally. Like I've listened to like Big Black and Shellac and stuff. They're not like big ones for me. I enjoy them. Maybe for the other Shawn, the bass player in our band, I think he's a little bit more of a fan of that stuff. So maybe that is an influence that he brings from his input. For me, more so, it'd be the connection to some of the bands that he's recorded. A big one for Child Bite would be the Jesus Lizard, and he's famously recorded them, and so that's a big one. And if you go way back to when I was first getting into playing music, would be the days of Nirvana, early 90s. So I think that would be definitely an early influence. And stuff, especially the harsher Nirvana stuff, like, not that Albini was involved with it, but like stuff like Bleach. So I'd say that, and And really, actually, one of my favorite records from back in the 90s he was slightly involved with was Helmet Meantime. And I remember having this idea, you know, when you're younger and you don't know how anything works and you're a little more naive to stuff, and so things are kind of a mystery. And I do remember way back when having that Helmet CD and reading all the credits and reading that the first song on the album was recorded with Steve Albini, and then the rest of it was recorded with somebody else. And I remember that to me was like, wow, this is crazy because it sounds like one record. It doesn't sound like two different things, you know. And it's funny how you think, yeah, you just like that's where my brain went. Whereas like, and then I asked him at one of the times I was recording with him about that, and he said, oh yeah, they came to me for the demos for that album, and they just liked their performance on the demo better than the studio version for that song, so they went with it. And kudos to I don't know who mixed that one off the top of my head, but whoever did it made it all sound like it came from one place, so it was pretty cool.
In the middle of nowhere, feeling alright. Do it over and over until your life is over. Don't think, just to pass the time. Don't think, just do it again. Don't think, just do. Don't think, just do it, do it, do it, do it.
Off The Omens is being released by Housecore Records, who people listening to this podcast will probably know as Phil Anselmo's label. How did you get involved with Housecore?
That one falls clearly under the "it's who you know" kind of situation, and his wife and I are good friends from way back when, way back in high school. We were going to shows together and hanging out, and then people separate after that and go their own routes in life, and then through the power of Facebook, we hooked back up, and her name is Kate Richardson. She saw that I was, she knew I was always doing art because I was doing that stuff back then, but she saw that I had started getting into doing screen printed rock posters and tour posters. And then she was like, hey, maybe I can get you to do some for my partner's band or my boyfriend or whatever. And I was like, yeah, sure. What's that? It's like, oh, it's Phil Anselmo. Oh, okay. Yeah, and so that's initially how we got started. That's how Phil started to know me, is by being an art guy that would do. I did some posters for him. I did some album covers for him, and around once I had done a couple projects that way, is when we showed him some Child Bite stuff. And really, actually, the main thing that we showed him to get involved with was pretty different. Child Bite recorded some anal cunt covers, and we were joking about, we were just like, basically it started as a dumb joke. We're at a show that we're playing, hanging out at the merch booth or whatever, and I saw somebody with an anal cunt, like the classic like AC logo patch on their jacket, and we were joking about, we could make our own ripoff where it's like CB. I guess it would be cunt butthole if you read it that way, but and so we're like, oh, that'd be funny. And it's like, I could draw that up. We could I could make a sticker out of it, or just something goofy. And then as dumb jokes go, at least in our band, we keep taking them further and further, and we're like, oh, what if we recorded some songs? And oh yeah. And then we were thinking, well, maybe that would be a good project to have somebody else do guest vocals on. Because at that time, my vocal style wasn't quite as harsh as it got in more recent years. And I was also still playing guitar in the band. So I was clearly just going to play guitar on that anyways, which I did. And so whatever. So we were just riffing on ideas. We're like, oh, who could we get to be our guest vocalist on this goofy release? And again, just like I was saying about the Helmet CD, I went back into my teenage mind of when I had Pantera's Great Southern Trendkill CD, and I remember reading in the credits that Seth Putnam from Anal Cunt did backup vocals on several songs. And then that same year, I think it was 96, Anal Cunt put out a record called 40 More Reasons to Hate Us. And I remember reading in the credits of that one that Phil Anselmo did backing vocals on a bunch of songs. So I put two and two together that they must have been buddies, singing on each other's albums. And it even had kind of a similar scream, like on that Pantera record. Like, if you didn't know it, at least to my ears, I would believe it if it was just Phil doing them all. But then knowing that it's somebody else, I'm like, oh, okay, I think that's Seth on that. Anywho, I was like, well, if we were going to shoot for the stars and get the ultimate choice for this ridiculous project, we would get Phil. And I happen to know somebody that's close with him. Let's record these songs, make them sound as good as possible, send them along, see what he says. Long story short, he said yes, and he did it. So that was really our first, Child Bite's first interaction with Phil, was doing this Anal Cunt cover record. And then after that, he checked out our originals, because we don't sound anything like that stuff. We're not like a grindcore band or anything. And he ended up really liking our original stuff. I think he really liked that it reminded him of Black Flag a little bit, like the later kind of Rollins years, like My War and Slip It In type of stuff. And he hadn't heard anybody doing anything like that in a long time. And he's a guy that the last thing he wants anybody to show him is a band that sounds like his band, even though that's what everybody thinks. Like so many people are like, hey, could you Phil, can you send him my band? We sound like Pantera. I'm like, dude, that's not what he wants to hear, And so he took a liking to us just because we didn't sound like anything that he'd been that people have been pushing on him, or that he hadn't heard anybody playing that style of music in a long time, and that's kind of one of his old whatever references and one of his genres he was into. So then he got into that stuff, and then we've been with him ever since, putting out the Childbite records and going on tour with him. We toured with Superjoint, I think, 4 times, and the Illegals 1 time, and Down 1 time. So he's been super supportive and generous. And even though it's a kind of a weird pairing, maybe somebody that hears our band and they see that Phil's putting it out, and I think that makes a lot of people scratch their heads. But it's been working. It's been working out great for us, and he's been having a kick working with us.
Yeah, I was actually surprised that Housecore put this out because, from what I know, Phil is, like you said, he's an old school fan, and there is a bit of that Black Flag sound in Childbite. But, when I think of Phil, I think of like the old school thrash that he's into, or the black metal and stuff like that. How do you feel you fit in with the other bands on Housecore? Or is that an issue for you at all?
It's not an issue, and it's kind of it's a small label, as in that there's the roster is not huge, and yes, it does tend to lean more towards the extreme metal side of things, but he also for a while there had Author and Punisher, which was totally different, kind of like raw, like literally industrial music. So stuff like that was really cool. He did a weird project with Bill Moseley, who most people know from like the Rob Zombie movies, like Devil's Rejects, and he was also in Texas Chainsaw Part 2 back in the day. They did like a Bill and Phil collaborative record. There's nothing heavy on it. It's just like this weird, I don't even know, kind of like folk record of some, something that they just like got together on a weekend and made. And but back on the heavier side, but not like this, not in as far as like black metal or grind or anything. One of the big bands on the label is I Hate God, and so we don't sound the same as them by any means, but there's definitely some kinship there and some kind of like heavy groove stuff that we can relate to, and we get along with all those guys, and we play shows with all of them. So, and one really cool connection that actually came, another unlikely connection that came from being on that label, is our kinship with the band King Parrot from Australia. And they're a grind band, so not exactly who you'd think Child might be playing with, but to date, our 2 bands have played more shows together than with any other bands. We played over 100 shows with King Parrot in the past, like 4 years or something, and just really enjoyed each other's company and grew to become good friends over that time. And they even invited us out to Australia. We went out there last year and spent a month and a half bouncing around in a van with them up and down the East Coast. So yeah, so I'd say, it's a, whatever, like a lot of, I don't know, it's a bit of a dysfunctional family, but in general, it's a positive thing.
a pointless web stretching through time. I am living the line. An old-fashioned DNA spit-swapping shit show. I am living the line. I apologize for your wasted efforts, but with the utmost respect, I am ending the line.
So beyond just releasing Child Bite on his label, you guys have actually collaborated with Phil a bunch of times. You recorded your previous album, Negative Noise, at his studio, which I believe is called Nosferatu's Lair. Is that right?
Yeah, it's actually, and I missaid it the first time too. It's a little bit of a pun. It's Nosferatu's Lair, as in when you're listening back to the song that you just recorded, everybody's sitting there nodding along to it. So it's a goofy thing, but yes, it's Nosferatu's Lair. Yeah, and that's his studio. That's right there on his property. It's basically in his backyard. He's got like a barn, for like a better term, that has a studio there, and he has an in-house engineer. His name's Big Fella, and he lives right there on the property, and he helps with the label. He does all the recording there at the home studio, and when they're out on the road, he takes care of the animals and waters the plants, and so he's kind of one of Phil's right hand men.
And you guys also recorded a Celtic Frost cover with Phil, and did a video with him, right?
Yeah. The Celtic Frost one we did the same style as the Anal Cunt thing. Exactly the same way, just because we're way up in Detroit. He's down in New Orleans, so that's a hike. So that one we recorded the music up here, sent it down for him to sing on. The music video we did while we were down there recording the album before this most recent one, the album called Negative Noise, and really it was just because, I don't know, like our way that we're used to recording is we don't have a lot of money, so we don't have a lot of time. So we're used to having to go in and work some long hours, do the whole thing in a couple days, and that's it. And then when we got down there, we were very much on Phil time. We were very much on Southern New Orleans schedule. So we ended up doing that record. I think we were there about 3 weeks, but we were only going, from maybe noon until 5 or 6 o'clock. And then we'd break for dinner, and sometimes we'd go back in. Most of the time, everybody's like, "Nah, let's just do it tomorrow." So it was a much more drawn out process, and we were doing everything individually, as in recording guitar, basically. We'd go in there and to get the drums down, and the guys are playing guitar and bass with him just as scratch track, so he knows where he's at in the song. Maybe I'm doing scratch vocal for him if it helps, but we're not keeping any of that. So we basically just spent a few days just getting the drums. Well, even before that, you're just spending a day or two just trying to get the drums sound right, because we're taking our time with it, and then there's a few days to get the drum recording. Then after that, the drummer's done, so he's sitting around for a couple weeks, with nothing to do, and we're just taking turns. So bass player goes in for a few days on his own, just Phil, Big Fella, and Shawn, our bass player, working on that, and then again with the guitars, and then again with the vocals. So there was a lot of downtime for us. So that was us getting a little stir crazy and trying to be productive. So we were like, let's record a music video while we're here. It can be a weird kind of B horror movie thing. It can be low budget and just fun. And Phil's wife, Kate, had always wanted to sneak into the old Six Flags amusement park down there that when Katrina hit many years ago, it, you know, destroyed a lot of stuff, and this amusement park got destroyed. Basically, just like, you know, it's just everything's still there, but it's, you know, in ruin and not open to the public. So that's the music video we did for a song called Mongoloid Obsession. That was basically about like weird whatever reality TV people. Like, I don't know if anybody knows who Honey Boo Boo is anymore. Maybe that was a couple years too long ago, but like how some of these people become basically sensations just because there's a freak of some sort on TV. Anyways, we snuck in there and we shot all the scenes that were us, you know, crawling around a old roller coaster and stuff until we got kicked out by the security people. Yeah, so that music video thing was just us while our guitar player was busy recording day after day. The rest of us were sitting on our thumbs thinking, what can we do to, you know, make use of this time.
Child Bite has actually recorded or released a few music videos that all kind of have this B-movie kind of low-budget horror feel to them. Why the music videos? Why have you guys done so many?
You know, I think, I mean,
beyond the fact that they're fun and awesome.
Well, no, for sure, yeah. No, but it's, to be completely frank with you, I think it's just like doing the art or the merch or whatever, writing songs. It's just another creative outlet. It's something, here's something else. And the other thing I guess I was getting at is that it's something that's within your control. You know, there's so many things when it comes to being in a band, especially if you're trying to operate at this like semi-professional level where it's like you don't have control over how people are going to react to the music. You don't have control over if like any like magazines are going to want to cover it, you know, favorably or otherwise. You don't have a lot of control over what tours you can get if you're trying to go out and do something above a DIY level and be like a support band for something. So there's so many things that you got to try for, but you don't have control over. And I think that's one thing. It's like, well, I know we can do this, you know, and it'll be fun and people will respond to it. It's a cool, like, little extra way to promote the band, but also to, you know, whatever, show our creativity in another way. So it's kind of a why not, really.
Yeah, anybody listening to this interview should really go to the Child Bite YouTube channel and check out these videos because they really are fun and they really are fun to watch. They're not just performance videos with you guys lip syncing along to your song. One of them has King Buzzo from the Melvins. Another one has Bill Moseley, who you mentioned just recently, and it's kind of this 50s like B monster movie with giant rats and things like that. Yeah, no, I really enjoyed the videos.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and we've been lucky to get to have some really talented friends that were willing to put in some work, and then we would sort of like, you know, one of our contributions would be to get some of the, get those little guest appearance people to be in it, to be like, hey, I know you're putting in a lot of work building all these giant rats and yada yada. Like, I got Bill Moseley to say he'll do it, and then that makes them extra stoked, and everybody's just happy, and we're. Yeah, and for what it's worth, like, it probably sounds cheesy, but it's like having those people like that in there might be the difference of somebody that's scrolling through the endless array of things vying for your attention on the internet to maybe get somebody to stop, and like take a chance on, spending 3 minutes watching something of a band that they might not know, So it's almost like pulling out all the stops. Like we gotta do everything we possibly can just to like maybe have a chance.
So you mentioned your artwork a little bit, that you do screen printing. You handle all the album artwork for Child Bite, is that right?
Yeah. I do all the visual art for the band as far as album art and merchandise. And I've just kind of been on that path forever. Like even when I was like a young teen, first getting into like learn how to play a bass guitar in my very first punk band. I was the guy that was making the cassette cover and going to the copy shop and cutting them out and assembling it and making the flyers for our show. So I've kind of just been on this kind of parallel path doing both of these, the music, the visual art and the music for most of my life, ever since I was a teenager. So it just kind of feels natural. It's what I've been doing, and in a way, it's kind of nice. I mean, aside from not having to deal with another artist's potentially flaky schedule or work habits and paying anybody, it's like I'll just do it, man. There's so many things I'm sure you've found in life, and anybody that's had any sort of venture that they've some idea that they wanted to turn into something. It's you really learn like you almost have to do everything yourself or as much as possible, because otherwise a lot of times things don't get done or don't get done the way you'd like it. And so it's nice. But other than that, even just like from an artistic statement kind of standpoint, I think there's something nice about a band that the person writing and singing the words also created the visual side of it. So it's a very much like a complete package that's coming from one group of people.
How would you describe your process? Are you drawing things? Is it mostly mixed media and collage? How are you assembling these illustrations?
Yeah, I mean, I as far as reference, a lot of it would be just whatever random images I can find and cobble together that I can then draw, like based off of whatever I can throw together, and sometimes trying to have it's a hard thing with illustration. Is I really enjoy the randomness being thrown into things, and sometimes it's hard with that to like get random, so I almost have to like find ways to trick myself and throw things in haphazardly, and then kind of and then respond to it, as if I'm collaborating with somebody and I don't know where it's coming from. But so a lot of it's been this illustration stuff, again, I think a lot, whatever, at least for me, a lot of all this stuff kind of goes back to early inspirations, and like an artist like Pusshead, who did all that old like Metallica t-shirts and then art for like a Misfits shirt, or even just like Misfits artwork, which would be like there's various people involved, but a lot of that was Glenn Danzig, like collaging things together and screen printing it himself and all that. So there's definitely a lot of like early inspiration from that sticks with me to this day. And and I was focusing heavily on the illustration for a certain era of the band, and up until this new record, that basically the 8 years up until this record, I was like, we're gonna use this one logo. I'm gonna do my illustrations, and that's gonna be the voice of the band for this era. And then with half the band changing and a new record coming out, it had been several years since the previous one. It felt like the time, like I'm gonna do something that still feels like us, that most people, if they see it, they'd be like, oh, that still feels like Childbite to them, but it does have some sort of distinction. And that's why this new record is not illustration. It's more like just collage type of artwork and typography, like custom typography. And it's good to I get bored with doing one thing too long. So I think focusing on just the illustration for enough years that, and not to say it won't come back at some point, or I'll probably start integrating it into things here and there, but it was nice to have a real solid reason to make a very deliberate shift in art style.
Speaking of the typography, there's a little bit of text on the album cover that says, "Let's burn out as one till we fall apart." Beyond the actual meaning of the phrase, the way there's text beyond the band name and the album title kind of reminds me of what Pettibon used to do for some of his artwork, where it would be like a comic book illustration panel with a caption or something like that.
Right, yeah. Completely, yeah.
And the collage style reminds me of Winston Smith, who used to do the artwork for Alternative Tentacles and the Dead Kennedys.
So, I mean, really, you're seeing, like that's all the stuff I grew up on. I grew up on the getting into the thrash metal stuff, and I was learning about that because there was metal magazines, and we had Headbangers Ball on MTV at that time. So I was getting in all my metal that way, and then all the hardcore stuff I was getting from, not even from my friends, but my friends' older siblings, that I'd be coming over for whatever reason, they'd take a liking to me, and they'd be like, yeah, Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer, that's cool, but check this out. And then they'd be showing me like the old Misfits, old Black Flag, Minor Threat, Dead Kennedys, Circle Jerks, all that stuff. So, and really, back then, it felt like two separate things. And it was kind of like, oh, some people like one, but not the other, and vice versa. And then it wasn't until like just a little bit further, digging a little bit further and seeing like pictures of Jeff Hanneman from Slayer on stage, and he'd have a big prominent Dead Kennedy sticker on his guitar, or listening to Metallica Garage Days and they're covering the Misfits, things like that, or Slayer covered Minor Threat and some other stuff, and so all that stuff. I was like, oh, okay, like there is some middle ground here, and there's a mutual adoration, and so that was all my influences there musically. It was when I was getting into playing music and getting into doing art, and so both of those types of music and the art that connected with them, like you said, with like Pettibone and Winston Smith, as well as Pusset I was talking about, are all kind of like intermingled and lodged into my head at that kind of pivotal moment in my development.
What a great idea! Fools on display, entertainment outside of thick eyeballs waves. Brains will make epidemic, Mongoloid obsession. Dual inducing, school inspired, Mongoloid obsession. The prophecy has come to pass. Copy of an insulted past. This downward spiral picking up steam. Exploited slash to minimum. The most disgusting examples of the human race. Broadcast worldwide for all the witness. Brain draining epidemic. Mongoloid obsession. True inducing, school inspired. Mongoloid obsession. Of the elephant man. Brain-draining epidemic, Mongoloid obsession. True inducing, school inspired, Mongoloid obsession. Brain-draining epidemic, Mongoloid obsession. True inducing, school inspired, Mongoloid obsession.
Before I let you go, tell me what you have planned next. What's in the future for Child Bite?
We actually almost kind of touched on it already. We don't have a lot of touring coming up, and we just got done with writing and recording this record. We also put out a couple 7-inches this past summer. One of them with a metallic hardcore band from Cleveland called Ringworm that have been around for like 30 years. Super awesome. And the other one with this other really strange band called Brain Tentacles, that if people are into the more avant-garde stuff, it's a drummer, bassist, and saxophone. Maybe the most well-known guy would be Dave Whitty, the drummer, who plays in Municipal Waste, but he's played in a million other bands and all sorts of crazy projects in the past.
Human Remains.
We did a 7-inch with them. Yeah. So this year was a lot of like writing and recording, and so we're poised to do some touring, but we've been around long enough. By next year we'll have been around 15 years. So we're not like just eager just to like jump out and just do whatever. It's like, but if it's the right situation, we're gonna go out. So kind of what I was saying that we touched on earlier was, like, I'm thinking about getting into doing some music videos, because we have these songs. This record just came out, and it could just, for nothing else, a fun way to spend the winter, just working on something completely different, making props and background, whatever, like set design or costumes or whatever, coming up with concepts for these. And so I think that's what we have on the immediate horizon is doing some more visual art.
And you guys have a release show on Friday the 13th of December, right?
Yeah, 3 days from now in Detroit. We're doing. We like to do that. It's been kind of. It's just something we do every time we have a new record. It's kind of a tradition. And thing that we'll do is we'll make the door charge just a couple bucks more than we normally would, but we make it so that you get a free copy of the CD when you come to the show. And it's kind of like a feel good thing. So we're kind of just at that point, we're giving the CDs out like at wholesale or whatever at cost, not making anything on them, but to make it just more of a celebration and just like have a nice kind of feel good kickoff to the new record, you know.
Unfortunately, I think this podcast is only going to come out on Sunday, so it'll be after the show.
Oh, that's all good. That's all good.
Sorry, but I did want to get that out there.
No, that's cool.
And I believe you're also involved with the band Shock Narcotic. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah, that was another one where you're I don't know what it was. I think it was basically that's another side of me is that kind of music, you know, growing up on like Napalm Death and also Carcass, all sorts of like and even Anal Cunt, whatever, all this like crazy super extreme stuff but it does require the right people, like the right type of people that play that kind of stuff. And I used to do some bands like that way back when. It's been a long, long time. And kind of just like realized I had the right players right around me. And I had this thought because I was like, oh, if I could be Molly Matchmaker and get this guitar player and this bass player and this drummer in the room together, this half of them, they didn't even know each other. Get them in the room together and see if there's some chemistry. Maybe there'd be something, and then I'll talk them into letting me be the weak link that shrieks all over it, and it worked. So so sometimes it works. So that was a band that's just like just some like basically some heavy hitter Detroit players that were willing to take a chance on it and had the capacity to throw another project into the mix. So yeah, that's a fun one that we do, and we keep it pretty low key. We'll play 2, 3, 4 times a year or something. It's kind of a like a all killer no filler approach to how much we're going to do. It's a band of guys that have already paid their dues, done been out on the road in their previous bands and done all that stuff. So we're not looking to like go sleep on 100 different dirty floors across the country anytime soon. It's more like if there's like a really cool opportunity or show that we feel strongly about, then we do it, and then we kind of go into hibernation and pop back out next time there's something worth doing.
And if people want to follow Childbite, how can they do that? How can people find you online?
Well, you could go to childbite.com, and there's not a lot up there. We're not we're doing a ton with the website, but there's some stuff like tour dates and videos. All those videos you mentioned earlier are on there, so it's an easy way to find it. And at the bottom of that page, it links you to Instagram. It's easy. It's just like at Childbite. Facebook, I think it's like facebook.com/childbiteofficial maybe. But if you search for it, you'll find it. That's one good thing about having such a bizarre band name is that it doesn't get muddied with a bunch of unrelated results. It's mostly stuff for our band or news reports of some kid biting somebody. So I get those alerts every once in a while, or like some sort of nasty preschool attendant person teaching kids why they shouldn't bite each other by biting them, and then they get caught on tape and sent to jail. So you might find some of that, which maybe that'll be entertaining too in a different way. But most of what you find will be about our band.
And if people want to see your artwork, how can they find your artwork?
I've taken I haven't been pursuing. Basically, I do so much art for these bands, and I also am the art person for Housecore Records, so that's something I'm working on all the time, is stuff for Phil's bands or for the label that I haven't in recent years had a ton of capacity for a whole lot of freelance, so I haven't been pushing that side a ton. But if you look me up You know, like Shawn Knight on Instagram, for instance. I post stuff about the band, but I also post my artwork. I still periodically will do tour posters or show posters for different bands, either local or national. So I'd say that'd be a good place to start.
The new Childbite album is called Blow Off The Omens. It's out now through Housecore Records. So in addition to streaming online, you guys are also doing physical releases for the album.
Oh yeah. That's always been important to us, and I mean, you know, I know it seems, even though vinyl having a resurgence in the grand scheme of things, you know, most stuff's leaning digital, but for the people that do still collect that stuff, it's cool and for me being an artist, it's cool to be able to have larger format and be able to do different stuff. Like for instance, on this new Childbite record, the vinyl version has the spot gloss. So just most of it's matte, but certain areas and certain elements are glossy, and it's a nice kind of, it brings this extra quality to it, and it's nice doing that. We do CDs, so we did this, you know, a digipack that folds all out and has an insert that comes out with all the lyrics and everything. We do the vinyl release. It's like a gatefold vinyl, and there's 4 different vinyl colors that you can get. One of them is exclusive to distribution, so you'd have to go to a store to get that. The other ones are through the band or through the label. And then I'm also working on not out yet, but a cassette version that is going to be like extra limited, but in this like really fancy packaging. It's like bigger than a usual cassette case. It's more like a DVD type of case, but it has like a 12-page booklet with all the lyrics, and comes with like other little swag in there, like a postcard and sticker and pins, and just and we're making those super limited. There's like 50 in stores, 50 from the label, and 50 from the band. Just to like, for whatever reason, we're attracted to these like fun, cool little things that you can collect or have in your hand, and it's whatever. It's still to at least to us like older guys from the scene. It's still like a big part of putting out the record.
Cool. And how can people order these physical releases?
Probably the simplest way to go would be to go to the Childbite Bandcamp page, because there you can listen to it. You could buy the download if you want, but there's also images and links to all the physical versions that will shoot you over. And those orders go straight over to Housecore Records, and Big Fella will pack up your order and send it out to you. And other than that, it'd be coming to a Childbite show, and we always have all our stuff on display, and Shawn and I print all the shirts ourselves after hours at the shop that he works at. So we've always, you know, got a bunch of new shirts and whatnot. So it's still fun for us to make all these things and try and get them out to people.
Is there anything else you want to say?
I don't think so. I think my dog Darwin has something to say. I just heard him barking in the background. Maybe no. Oh, I guess he's done. Mama's got a chokehold on him, so I think his statement has been snipped short, unfortunately. So yeah, no, I think that's it, man. Just you know, we'll definitely be doing some touring at some point next year. It's just still in the works, and nothing is definite yet. But we'll be getting out there again, I'm sure, by next summer, and watch for those weird videos that I've yet to even figure out what the hell I'm gonna do.
Very cool. Thank you so much, Shawn.
All right, thank you, buddy.